Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, yesterday we learnt about how to connect with APIs. So, we discussed about how various AJAX methods work. So, in AJAX techniques, we learnt XML HTTP request. We learnt about fetch promise. We learnt about jQuery AJAX and how to use what Axios. These are all the AJAX techniques we learned. So yesterday I showed you how to use an API. API, we are accessing data from some NASA API and we saw that. Have you tried yesterday's example? You tried the APIs, right? React like technologies are not for listening like video, right? So if you don't practice, then you can't handle them in any interviews or anywhere. It's not like just sitting and listening like officers. It needs practice. This technology is very advanced and your jobs are primarily depending on Angular and React like technologies in the current generation. Even you are a Java.NET developer, you have more jobs only with React and Angular as profile. If you put only Java developer in resume, no company is interested in you. Java, .NET, Python, no companies are interested in you. Java, React, Java, Angular, only these people are suitable for companies. And your job majority will be in these areas. All modern applications use this. If you don't practice, you can't crack any interview related to your Java.NET also or Python, any technology. So it's very difficult in the modern generation to handle your interviews without practicing this. So you need good practice. So you need to practice all what you are learning in class. So I asked you to try NASA API, registering an API key. Have you got that? So try. First you register, get an API key, then use that in interactions. Actually, where to use API keys, I showed you. Whenever we designed our React application, this React application, we created a NASA API here. Now in this Axios is using this NASA API. Here you remove this demo key and paste the key that comes in your email. They will send you a key as email. You paste that key there. Otherwise, what happens is when you run this project and you are unable to see the output, go to console. In the console, it will show an error. You have reached maximum limit for today. That means they are restricting access. So there is no problem in your code. Your code is correct. But if you are using demo key, you can practice multiple times. So what you have to do, you need to make sure that the key is registered and you are using a registered key. Okay, right. So here, after understanding this, we will use several APIs. I will show you different examples. So whether APIs, shopping APIs, different examples are there, we will see. But for that, we need to learn one more concept. As I told you yesterday, all these days we discussed about fetching data and presenting data. Yesterday, how we presented one tabular form, another one is card styles. Different ways of presentation depends on your HTML, CSS skills. Now, not just presentation, we need interaction. Interaction means we need to design filter, searching. Suppose you see when we open some website like Flipkart. In Flipkart, suppose I am searching for some mobile. In mobile, I am searching for some category. And you can see here, this is mobiles category. You see, here they are showing all the mobile data. Mobile data they are showing right side, different colors, different models. But you see left side, they have a panel. In the left panel, you see there is a slider. This slider is price range. Now, when I select this price range, it will filter and it will show only the products that belong to that price range. I selected rating, it will show only the products that match that rating. Now this API will not provide. What API will provide? API will provide only data. What is our job? We need to design such interaction. That means we need to create a checkbox. User selects the checkbox, the matching records must display. We need to display drop down. User selects a value from drop down, the matching records must display. We need interactions. Filtering, sorting, searching like interactions we need to design on data. And for that, we need to learn one important concept, and that is we need to understand the concept of two-way data binding. Two-way data binding. Already all these days what you learned, one way. And we discussed that by default. By default, React supports only one-way binding. Two-way binding, explicitly we have to enable that. What is one-way binding? Accessing data from source and displaying in the UI. Two-way binding is identifying changes in the UI and updating those changes. But React will not allow. For example, let's see two-way binding and how it works. So let's take. To handle two-way binding, you need some additional knowledge. I am adding a component called two-way binding. Okay, let's add a file. So two-way binding.jsx. So export function two-way binding. Okay, return some, just a container. And let's make this in the startup. This is two-way binding. I am starting the project. Now we will have some state constant username set username is equal to use state. Some username is set as John. Default some initialize. Here I am just adding some data list data term. This is username and we have a text box. And in the text box, we need to bind that value. And here I put a heading hello and that username. And in the text box also I am displaying value. I am binding username. That means this username we are accessing and displaying there. This username we are showing in a text box and we are showing that in a heading. So what is the point? In the text box, I can modify the username because text box is a element which allows to view and change the value. And whenever I change the value, it should update here and that update must show here. That means what is the nature of text box? You have learned different form elements. You learned about a label. What label can do? It can just show a value. It will not allow to modify. What text box can do? It can show a value and allow to modify the value. So text box allows to modify the value that we know generally. But see here now in the output here, this is there. Let's put here container fluid. Yeah. And you can see here the value is actually in use state. We have a John and this value is displayed here and the same value is displayed here. And this text box should allow to modify the value so that will update here. That update will show here. Then see, I am clicking in text box and I am trying to remove it. It's not working. I am not allowed to type anything. It's not working. Usually, if you do this same in your HTML, JavaScript, it works. It will allow to modify, but it's not allowing. This is what we say one-way binding. One-way binding, React says that it is a good feature for React. But Angular says that we have two-way binding and that is our good feature. That means they have their own issues. Both are good. But in one situation, one way is good. In another situation, two way is good. That depends on requirement. So why React says one way is good? That is their way of presenting the data. Just like you see, suppose iPhone says, I will not give a 3mm audio jack. Am I right? 3mm audio jack is not given by iPhone. Ordinary phones, other phones will give an 3mm audio jack. You can pin a headphone and listen. Now why you are not giving 3mm audio jack? For that they will tell a reason. They will say that audio quality will not be good when it is traveling through a wire. That's what the reason they say. That means the same reason is not applicable to others. Huh? I hope you understood the point. Right? One person says this is great and this is good for me. For him it is good. And he have a reason also because certain situations that is good. But not every situation it is good. Not every situation it is good. The good completely depends on this, right? So that means whether it is good or not, that depends on the situation. So everybody claims that their feature is good, but they have their own drawbacks. For every situation, they don't match. React is good in one-way binding, but it is not great every time. Why it is good? Because if I put one-way binding, accidentally, intentionally, any changes in the data is not allowed. That means until or unless I enable changes, it will not allow changes. Because till now in your JavaScript or any location, even you are not allowing changes, they are allowed to change. They are allowed to change whether you update or not, your wish, that you can control. But changes are allowed. But React says that even those changes are not allowed. I will bind some value, you can't modify it. That is good, but not great every time, because I need to change the value and it is not allowing to change the value. Then how to do this? We need to implement external techniques. So what is the claim of React? So React key feature is one-way binding. React key feature is one-way binding. So it allows to bind the data with UI elements. It will not allow changes in data. So it is more secured. So, but if you want to enable two-way binding, so to enable two-way binding, it requires explicit actions to configure. Explicit actions to configure means externally you need to write some logic, and through that you can enable this two-way binding. And what is that external logic we need to write? What is the external thing we need to handle? Let's see. So to understand two-way binding, you need to learn another major concept. What is two-way binding? Identifying changes in the UI and updating back. So see, in your JavaScript, how you will identify that there is some change in the value. In your JavaScript, how you will identify that there is some change in the value in a text box. Usually you have to use events. By using events, we can identify the changes. And what events? Actually, so many events are there. What is event? I will tell you. Detail, you will see that. So many events you learned in JavaScript. And what is the event that identifies the changes? Like you have on change, am I right? On change, like on key up, am I right? So these events will fire up. When the events fire up, they will verify whether the value is same or changed. If the value is changed, they can update the value. Changes, there are so many events. I'm just giving only 1, 2 here. Like we have on blur. On blur means when it loses the focus. So to identify the changes in the value and update those changes back into the source, you need events. In JavaScript, jQuery, Angular, everywhere we need events. And React also requires these events. But do you know technologies like Angular, they say that we have two-way binding. What is the specialty is without writing event, they can update. That is the specialty of two-way binding. Two-way binding means they say that we have two-way binding means you just connect the data with source. So one way it will show, Another way, it will update without writing logic. You don't need to write any logic. You just connect them. They will automatically update. Many technologies claim that they have two-way binding. What does it mean? That without writing any additional logic, they allow to update the values. And they update the values into the source without writing. But in your JavaScript, you have to write events. In React also, we have to write events because React by default supports only one way. That means, can we handle two-way binding in React? Yes, but internally it is not supported directly. Internally supported means without writing event, it should update. And every technology that claims that they have two-way binding, those technologies can update without event. You don't need to write events. Internally, they are connected. You just modify the value, it will update. That's good. So that is implicit two-way binding. But these are all explicit two-way binding. And for that, you need what? Events. So you already learned events in JavaScript, but you need more good knowledge of events to handle them in React. So we will see about events, how to handle. Then you can manage two-way binding. To handle two-way binding, you need a good knowledge of events. Already in JavaScript, several events you will learn, like click, blur, focus, so many events are there, but you need more good knowledge. Because in interviews of React, several questions are asked on these events. Several technical questions, which are very important. Let's see how they work. So to handle two-way binding, enable two-way binding. To enable two-way binding, it requires actions, and actions are defined by using events. Actions are defined by using events. So to enable two-way binding, you need events. You need events. If you have events knowledge, then you can handle this two-way binding. Let's see about events. What is event? How this event works? We will see. You already have an idea of about events in JavaScript because JavaScript teaches events, different events, but detailed in-depth knowledge is required to handle technologies like React and Angular. So let's see what are that. So first important, if you have knowledge of events, then you can manage two-way binding. So you need to know some important concepts first. So what is event? How you define event in JavaScript based technologies or any software programming? What is an event and what is its purpose? How you define actually events? You learnt on, click, on, load, on, blur, so many. What is event? Actually, event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber to notify, in order to notify the change. Event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber in order to notify the change. Event follows a delegate mechanism, which is a function pointer mechanism. And event uses a software design pattern called observer, which is a communication pattern. These are all important points to understand. This is the official definition of event anywhere. In any technology, when you are using event, this is the concept about event. Event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber in order to identify the changes. Event follows a delegate mechanism, which is a function pointer mechanism. And the event uses a software design pattern called observer. So software design patterns is a big concept. I will not go into that now. It's a very important and very large concept, usually for programmers. You know, you are learning some languages like Java, C++, .NET, C# languages and all. You will, as a programmer, you have to come across with different software design patterns. For example, suppose you are a OOP learner. In OOP, you learned a class, class, Java, .NET, C++, class. If anyone asks you how to design a class so that a class cannot have an instance, that means you cannot create an object for that class, but you have to use the class. If anybody asks you like, how do you design a class so that that class can have only one instance? Usually class can have multiple instances. But how do you design a class so that it will have only one object? Do you know that mechanism is called as singleton? These are software design patterns. That means software programmers know about design patterns. Different design patterns will be there. Abstract factories. So observer is a design pattern. Iterator is a design pattern. Event follows a design pattern called observer. It is a communication pattern. Let's try to understand these three lines. What does this means? Let's see. First, actually, you already learned events in JavaScript, but what you know and what exactly they are may be little different in understanding. I will explain. Suppose in your HTML JavaScript, because React uses same mechanism. In your HTML JavaScript, we have a button, on click, we have insert click, and the button name is insert. Now, generally, what usually people think about event and actually what it is. Suppose we have a function here. We have a function called insert click. And we have a button on click is insert click. By seeing this, majority people, what they understand is there is a function called insert click, and on button click we are calling that function. Am I right? Yes, sir? No, it's not that. So you are not calling the function, you are pointing towards the function. That means actually you are not calling this function, you are pointing towards the function, bottom to top. What generally people think that they are calling a function. On button click, we are calling a function called insert click. No, that's wrong. On button click, we are pointing towards insert click. We are not calling it. We are going there. It is a function pointer. It uses function pointers are called delegates. In software programming, we call this delegate mechanism. It is communication. Observe carefully. Suppose let's say you are thinking that you are calling a function, right? Now, if I am calling a function, is there a function by that name in my logic? Is there a function by that name? There is no function by name insert click, and I am calling that. Then it should show error. No? That means it should show that I can't find insert click. Reference error should come. That reference error says that insert click not found. That means you are trying to call a function which is not there, then obviously reference error will come. But observe here now, when I run this page, I will run this page separately and go to inspect, go to the console. In the console, there is no error. If I am calling a function which is not at all there, then it should show error. It is not showing error. Okay, let's do one thing. We click insert. When I click insert, now it tries to point towards the function and it is unable to find the function. Then it will show error. So event is not calling the function. Event is pointing towards the function. It is a function pointer. Technically, function pointer is known as delegate. And this is a communication pattern. Here you see now, here we have a function called what? Insert click. Now when I click the button, it can point towards the function. This is called subscriber, and this is called sender. That means sender will send a notification to the subscriber saying that some click happened, and subscriber will perform this functionality. So sender sends a notification and subscriber performs the functionality. Event is the communication between the sender and the subscriber. It is communication between sender and subscriber. Sender sends the notification and subscriber will do the functionality. When the functionality is performed, when sender sends a notification, that means you return an event, but it will not trigger until or unless sender sends a notification saying that button clicked, drop down changed, then it will perform the functionality. So that is the meaning here. That is the meaning of this definition. Event is a message sent by sender to its what? Subscriber in order to notify the change. So it follows which mechanism? Delegate. Delegate means what? Function pointer mechanism. And it is a communication design pattern. We call this pattern as what? Observer. Observer means it is waiting and observing for changes. If change occurred, then it will perform the functionality. That is the concept of event. In any software technology, this is the definition of event. Now, in your JavaScript, actually, once you know about event, so if anyone asks you, what is sender? So what is sender? Actually, sender is a trigger. Sender is a trigger. On click, on change, on blur. Those are triggers. We call them as trigger points. So sender is a trigger. So that identifies the changes. It is a trigger that identifies the changes. You are making some change in a value. Automatically on change will trigger. You are modifying some value, automatically key up will trigger. That means sender is a trigger that identifies the changes. And when changes are identified, who will perform the functionality? Subscriber. So what is subscriber? Subscriber. Subscriber is nothing but it defines the actions to perform. So when event triggers, it defines the actions to perform when event trigger. It defines the actions to perform when event triggers. What actions to perform? that is decided by subscriber. On button click, what should happen? That you write by using a function. So here, syntactically, function insert click. So this is what, this is subscriber. So button here, so simply like on click, insert click. This is what sender. We have a sender and a subscriber. We have the sender and subscriber. Sender sends a notification and it triggers, and subscriber will perform the functionality. That is about event. Next, another important in your JavaScript, you will learn about what is event handler. What is event handler? Every event can be defined in two ways. We have a event handler and we have a event listener. We have event handlers and listeners. Events can be defined in two ways in JavaScript, through handlers and through listeners. So JavaScript events are configured in two ways, through a handler and through a listener. Actually, I will show you the point here. Suppose you have a button and this button have this on click. This on click is called as event. On click, which functionality it will perform? This is called as what? Event handler. Event handler. So event and event handler. It is just like email ID, email address. Are both same? Email ID, email address are both same? They are not same, different. Email ID is different, email address is different. You don't know? Email ID means, suppose we are having some name @gmail.com. This is email address. Some name, this is email ID. That is ID. That's not address. And the above one is not email ID. That is email address. Suppose you are using Gmail. In Gmail, they ask you your email ID. Do I need to type @gmail.com? Not required. ID is enough. Am I right? You are using Gmail ID in Facebook. Is ID enough? In Facebook, you are using your Gmail ID. ID is not enough. You have to use Gmail address. @gmail.com compulsory. That @gmail.com is not compulsory in Google. Understood? So there is difference between email ID, email address. Event and event handler are same. Event means when it will do. On click it will do. On change it will do. Event handler means when what it will do. That means on click it will do insert click. On change it will do some city change. That means event handler defines two things. One is when it will perform, what it will perform. Event handler identifies the action and the trigger. Event handler contains two things, the trigger and the action. What is the trigger? Trigger is what? On click. And on click, what functionality? Insert click. That is handler. Handler comprises of a trigger and an action to perform. So event handlers are nothing but, so every element can have an event handler. So which defines the trigger and action. Which defines the trigger and action. So on click, this is event. on click, insert click. This is called as event handler. On click, insert click. This is called event handler. Event handler. Now, without event handler, can we write events? Yes, we can write events. JavaScript allows to write events without handler. We can write events through listeners. JavaScript have event listeners. Through event listener, you can write events. Event handler is okay. Why we need a listener? Why we need a listener is nothing but actually, so you have a button. So I will put document.write inserted. Just message. Huh? Now you see, we have a button called insert, and the insert button is in the design. When it is in the design, it is having a functionality. We return what functionality to perform. So see what I am doing. On body, on load. This is body loader. When body loads, what I am doing is I am writing a function called body load. When body loads means when page loads, I will create a button called document.createElement button. I am creating a button, and this button inner HTML is some update, and add this button to body document.querySelector. So we are adding body. Into the body append child, we are adding button. That means in my page, I have two buttons. One button is insert, another is update. Insert button is in my design, so I can write a handler. And update button is not in design. Then how you write a functionality for this? How do you write event for this? It's not in design. This is dynamically added. Dynamically we add several elements into page. This button is design, through design I added, so I can write event. This I haven't added through design, I added through logic. Then how you write event for this? Here you can write event already written. On click or insert click. But this is a button which is not there in design. Then how do you write event for them? You cannot use event handler. What we have to do is, for this button, we have to add event listener. Event listeners are used in JavaScript to add events to any element dynamically. So even element is in the design, I don't want that event to do any work until or unless the situation comes. You directly attached some work, even the situation is not there, it is still using that. That means we can add events only when they need it. You don't need to directly add the events. You can use add event listener, and actually event listener is asking what event? Event name. Event name is what? Click. On click, what functionality it should do? The functionality I am giving. What is the functionality? Document.write. This is what? Updated. So one element is in the design, and for that handler is okay. It is working. But this element is dynamically created. You can't have a handler for that. Then how to add events? By using event listener. And when I click, it will perform. We add events in JavaScript to elements dynamically. And that is possible by using listener. Even if it is in the design also we can do. Even if it is in the design we can do. For example, we have another button called delete. This button ID is btn delete. And you see there is a delete button also. Now we have three buttons. These insert button, delete button are in design. Update button is created dynamically. So how you added event for update button? By using a listener. We are using a listener. And for this we are using a handler. By using a handler for insert. For delete also it is in design. Even it is in design, no need of handler. We can add a listener. How to add the listener? For delete, I want click functionality. Then on body load, access that button. How to access the button? Document dot get element by ID. What is it? btn delete. btn delete. To that add event listener. You add event listener. Which event you want? Click. What functionality you want? Functionality is document.write deleted. This message should come. That means event listeners are added even it is in design. Now what is the speciality of this listener? What is the speciality of this is your design is clean with only design. In design there is no logic. Previously what is happening? This is the button design, am I right? In button design, why you are having logic? That's not good. In many situations, we need to cleanly separate, design separate, logic separate. In design, if I have logic, then extending the logic is difficult. I have to disturb the design to add extra logic. So in real world, many occasions what they do, they don't write event handlers, they write event listeners. Why they write event listener? Because cleanly separated, code separate, design separate. In design, there will be nothing related to code, only design. That means classes, styles, IDs, no on click on change in the design. In the design, elements will be there, their design will be there, functionality will not be there. Functionality we separately attach to those elements. By using listener, we can do. Now you see I am adding listener for an element which is there. You see delete also working fine. Insert also working fine. Update also working fine. And in this insert is designed. While designing we are having a handler for it. And delete also designed but without handler. It is using a listener. And update is not designed. It is not in the design. We dynamically created this button. We dynamically created the button, added the button. If any elements are required with dynamic events, then we have to use what? Listeners, event listeners. This is general JavaScript event concept. So in general JavaScript events, you should learn all these actually. What is event? What is event handler? What is event listener? How do we add events for elements? These are general basic things. So here we have event handler. Another one is event listener. Next important is what is event listener? So a listener is configured dynamically for elements in page. Dynamically for elements in page. So that it can trigger a functionality. It can trigger a functionality dynamically. A listener is configured dynamically for elements in page so that it can do it dynamically. Dynamically means at runtime. At runtime. Dynamically means at runtime. So handlers and listeners we are having. So syntactically how we add a listener. Suppose we have document dot some query selector. We have button. For that we have add event listener and here event name, and we have a function to execute. That is actually the syntax. So here, that is the reason in some instances between on click and click. Both are not same, both are different. On click and click are not same, both are different. Click is the listener name and on click is the handler name. Actual JavaScript don't have on click. JavaScript event is click. JavaScript event is change. On is a word added when you are writing in a handler. So actual event name is click. Actual event name is change. Actual event name is blur. Those are event names. So what is difference if anyone asks this, like, so what is difference? What is difference between on click and the click? So the answer for this is on click is an handler name and the click is a listener name. Click is a listener name. So when you are writing the event statically, we say on. We have to use on. That means it will on the click action and it will perform the click functionality. And dynamically it is already on. Element is already on. You have to just click. Dynamically it is already on. You have to just click. So you don't need on click there. No need means you should not use on click. If you write on click in listener, it will not work. Listener requires only event name. So syntactically how you define same. Document get element by ID. We have a button and we have add event listener. So in this click is the event name and the functionality. What functionality you need to perform. The listener name and the handler name. So that is one concept. So what is the listener and the handler, right? These are all event related basics of JavaScript. Why? Because you can't call yourself as a React developer until or unless you know all these basics. Still, you are not learning events in React. You are learning about events. Once you have a knowledge of this, you can use them in React. In React, how to use also we will see, right? These are the basics of events in JavaScript, right? So event, you should know the terms, event handler, event listener. Just for your understanding and practice sake, I will share this example. Usually you already may learn this in JavaScript, but I am still sharing you this example of JavaScript HTML. This example here I showed how to add listeners and how to add the handlers, right? This is a general JavaScript example only, not React. So we have event handler, event listener. Next, important, while working with events, you need to understand about. So what are event arguments? What are event arguments? So while working with events, you have event arguments. What are event arguments? What are event arguments? That is important. Very, very important. So in everywhere we need to use this. Event arguments are nothing but event arguments. Arguments refer to payload. Event arguments refer to payload. That is the technical term. What is payload in software programming? In any software programming, the term payload refers to data carried from one place to another. In any software programming, the term payload refers to data carried from one location to another. In your Java, C++, .NET, Python, JavaScript, anywhere, if you have to carry some data from one location to another, the data carried is called as payload. The data carried is payload. That means payload actually refers to, payload refers to data carried from one location to another. And actually, event arguments carry data from one location to another. So what are the event arguments? What are event arguments? So actually, here we have important point. So what are JavaScript event arguments? Event arguments we know. What are JavaScript event arguments? Event arguments means they carry data. In JavaScript, what they refer? What are event arguments? So what are event arguments in JavaScript is actually JavaScript event arguments transport information about element and event. They transport information about element and event. Element information includes details like element information means what? Element information means its ID, its name, its value, its SRC. So it's some href, depends on element. If it is image have SRC. If it is link have href. That is event actually. These all element related details. And event information includes details like we have details like client X. So client X, we have like client Y. That means X-axis position, Y-axis position, key code. We have char code. We have like which. These all are JavaScript event arguments actually, means event related details. JavaScript event arguments contain data in this way. They have information about these things. So client X, client Y, all these are important. So usually these are event arguments. And what are arguments? So here one more important thing. JavaScript allows default arguments and custom arguments. JavaScript allows default arguments and custom arguments. And here important, what are JavaScript default arguments? JavaScript default arguments, we have this and event. These are two default arguments. This is one default argument. Event is another default argument. I will show you what these are. Actually, this is nothing but it sends information about element. Actually, it contains information about element. It contains information about element. Event contains information about event. These are two default arguments. Every event in JavaScript have two default arguments. One is this, another one event. This contains information about element, and event contains information about the event. Actually, here, what are these arguments, default arguments? How to handle these default arguments? We'll see them. So arguments are allowed to transport data. Suppose I will show you a simple requirement here. That means a general requirement I will show here. Actually, suppose we are having this all we can clean up now. Yeah. Suppose we have a button called play. We have a button called pause, and we have a button called stop. We have three buttons. Now, three buttons require three functionalities. That means play button should start playing, pause should pause playing, stop should stop. So how many functions we need to write? Three functions. We can write one function and handle three. You don't need three functions. We can write one function which can handle all three. And we need to do that. Why you are writing three functions? If you are writing three functions, you are allocating three different memories. And you know the function memory of one function is not accessible to another. Then what you have to do, you need to use a global variable to transport data across functions. If you write three functions, every function have individual memory. And the function memory is not accessible to another function. You need global memory again. That is the reason if I need continuous operations, I can allocate one memory in that I can manage all three. That means, see what I am doing here. I am writing a script and a function called player. This player function will be accessed by all buttons. On click, which one? Player. On click, this is also same. On click, same. All buttons are pointing towards same function, then all will do same work. Am I right? How to tell the function that this time you clicked play, this time you clicked pause? How function knows about your elements? A function can know about element like this. So play button is having a name called btn or simply play. It is having a play name. And pause button is having a name called pause. Stop button is having a name called stop. That means now what happens is on click, you can send this. This is nothing but, this is a default argument. It is a reserved word. What this is going to do is, it sends information about button. It sends information about button to whom? To this function. Information about button means what? Button height, button width, button color, button ID, button name, button value. Everything related to button you can access here. Everything related to button you can access. Its height, width, its color, its information. Complete button details are accessible through which one? This. Now you are sending a parameter. You need to collect that. This is nothing but suppose button. Okay. That this refers to element. What is that element? Button. You know, formal parameter name can be anything, right? This name you can give anything, but actually button related details are sent here. Now what I will do, I will write a simple switch. So I will write a simple switch case. Into the switch we will pass button dot name. Button dot name means button name. Because this is going to send all details. Name, ID, value, class, everything. Currently we need only name. That means button dot name. Button dot name means it will send play. So what is the case we are expecting? If case is what? Play, then it should display some message. So suppose I am keeping here a paragraph, and in the paragraph I will put document query selector paragraph inner HTML. It should say playing and break. And what is the next one I am expecting? Another case is what? Pause. If the button is pause, then it says paused. Paused message should come. And another one is what? Stop. If it is stop, then it should say stopped playing. That means now we are having 3 buttons, but functionality is only one. But function is only one, functionality is different. That means now you see when I click play, it is playing, pause, it is pause, stop, it is stop. We are not writing 3 functions. We are writing only one function which can manage 3. Then how function knows about your button? Which button you clicked, how it knows? Button, from button we carried some information. What is that information? That is about button name. Actually we carried all button details. Button related so many details will be there. Button ID, button name, button class name, everything related to element you can access with reference of what? This. And remember, this is just a reference name. You know formal parameters, na? This formal parameter can be X, Y, Z, A, B, C, anything, but this refers to this. That means you are sending information about element. Not only information about element, you can send information about event. We can send information about event also. Event related information also we can send. Event related information means, for example, you see now here. Actually, event related information means you already know the concept. I will copy this example also for you. This example is for this. Okay. Event related information means I will show one example, like suppose you know here, suppose we have some Amazon or something. You see, I click on this button, a pop-up came. That means a dialog came. Now see, this dialog have a close button, am I right? Not close button, I am clicking somewhere inside the dialog. Nothing is happening. Just click outside the dialog, it will close. How it knows I clicked outside? How it knows I click outside its dialog? That means it can know the position where you are clicking. That means it has some exposition, and out of that exposition you are clicking, it knows that it is outside. How it knows its exposition? Where means I thought click means click. No, click means where you clicked also we can identify. How you clicked also we can identify. How you clicked, where you clicked, we can know. For example, suppose this is one point. Another I will show you. See, suppose here we are having https://www.amazon.in. I typed some website address in MS Word or PowerPoint, Excel or Visual Studio Code. Anywhere you type such address, automatically it will transform into link. Do you know when I move mouse pointer, it will show a message. Control plus click to follow the link. Generally, when I am clicking, I click here, nothing happening. But I press Control key and click on this, it will open that web page separately. It is opening here. How the element knows I clicked with Control key or not? Click means I thought only button click. No, whether you use Shift and click, whether you use Control and click, whether you use Alt and click, we can know how they click. We can know how they clicked. We can know where they clicked. That is possible by using event arguments. By using event arguments, we can send event details by using event. For example, I will show this part now. Suppose another one here, we have a simple label. In this label, I will just put a message https://www. So amazon.in. I'm using like this. It's a label. Label means it is a normal text like this. Label means it will display normal text like this. Is this label clickable? Labels are not clickable. They are just selectable. You can't click on this. And see now, for this label, I am adding a title. Title, I am saying that Control plus click to follow. To follow link. I'm just giving like this. That means when I move the mouse, it says that Control plus click to follow link. You know, HTML have titles so that we can put screen tips. Right? When you move the mouse, it will show a screen tip. Title is used for displaying screen tips in HTML. And when I move the mouse onto it, it shows a tip. And if I use Control key and click, then it should open that website. Right? How my button knows I used a Control key or not? So we can do one thing. What you have to write on click. On click, suppose link click. This is a function. So we will write here as script and we have a function called what? Link click. How link click knows whether I used a Control key or not? Control key or not, that doesn't belong to label. Label have details like ID, name, classes and all. Now how do you send that? We use what? Event. That means you can send two details through event. Element related details, event related details. Element related details are sent by using this. Event related details are sent by using event. Remember, these are keywords. You have to just use exactly with the same spelling capitalization. Event word. Okay. Now I will collect this event here. How to collect the event E? I will collect E. And through E, I can know whether Control key used or not. Temporarily see what I am doing. Console.log temporarily E.ctrl key. This verifies whether you are using a Control key or not. It will return true or false. Observe now. I am opening the console, inspect, go to the console and observe here. I click, it is saying false. That means I am not using Control key. I am just clicking, it says false. I used Control key, hold down Control key and now click on it. Now it says true. That means it knows whether you are using a Control key or not. Then what our developer will do, he will write the logic. If, what is it? E dot what? CTRL key. That means if they used Control key, what should happen? So window dot open. It should open some https://www.amazon.in like this. It should just open this in a separate window. That means I will just put a title like what? Amazon. Like this I given. Now see what happens. I move the mouse and click. Nothing is happening. I used a Control and click. Then it should open a separate window here. In that window, it will open it. That means I used a Control key. I am closing it. I used a Control key and click. Then it opens a separate tab where it will show it. That means it is able to open and navigate to that particular location when I use the control key. How it knows? That is possible by using what? Event arguments. Every event have two details to send. One is about element, another one is about event. These are called default arguments. And remember, you can send both details or you can send any one detail. That means you can send both details. Suppose I want to send both details, means event as well as element. Both I want. Then what you have to do? We can send two details, event comma, what is it? This. And here you can collect event and second one is this. This is related to what? Label. You want to know label related details, then I will just temporarily use console.log label.title, something like this I'm using. Then you see what happens. I click on this, label title will come. In label we return this title. No? In label we return this title, then it will show this title. It will display the title. That means we are sending element details, we are sending event details. So this is, remember, this is all JavaScript event. That means in JavaScript, when you write events, every event have two default arguments. One is this, another one is event. These are called default arguments. That means you can send information about element, you can send information about the event. These two we can do. So usually this is another example I will give. This is to make you understand about how the event and the element details are sent. We can send both details as I showed you. Now we have one more option. We can have custom arguments. We can send our own details. Along with default arguments, we can send our own details also. Our own details means what? You see, that means here another option is, so what are custom arguments? What are custom arguments? So JavaScript event allows to send any custom argument which is user defined data. User defined data. It can be any type data, any type of data. Any type of data means it can be primitive type or it can be what? Non-primitive type. Primitive type. Any type of data also you can send. You can send default arguments or you can send custom arguments. We can send custom arguments also. Default arguments and custom arguments. Custom arguments means we can send our own details, like what? We have a button on click is what? Suppose details click. In that we can send one, we can send TV, we can send suppose rating. This is an object, rate 4.53 something. We can send array like Delhi. So this is a single quote is required because inside we are sending a string, inside string. That means here like this we can send our own details also to event. That means now on details click, so we have a function. This function name is details click, and details click is sending how many parameters? How many arguments are sent? 4 arguments are sent. That means how many references you need? Not need of 4. You learned REST parameters now. JavaScript have REST parameters. REST parameter means ... product. One REST parameter can collect all details now. One REST parameter can collect all details. You can have 4 parameters for 4 details, or you can have only one REST parameter which can collect all details. And REST parameter is an array type parameter. It is an array type parameter. You can use array destructuring and you can collect. That means at product 0, it is having 1. At product 1, it is having TV. These are JavaScript REST parameters. We use REST parameters to collect multiple arguments. So what we do now here, suppose I will show you what is the REST here. Suppose we have a button details. So we have on click, we have what? Details click. And you see here, you can send a button have an ID roughly. Button ID is BTN details. Okay. Details. Okay. And this button is having it is having event. That means default arguments are there. Our own arguments also can be there. 1, TV, and rating like this. Rate is for 4.5. Like this, we can have our own details also. You can send only your details. You can send default details, both details. That means now here we are expecting. So script, and we have a function. The function is what? Details click. In details click, first one refers to object, second one refers to event. Third, after that object and event, ID, TV, rating, all we want to collect through one argument, then this is REST. You know, REST parameter can be used along with other parameters, but REST parameter must be last. You learned the rules, na? Every function can have only one REST parameter, and REST parameter must be last parameter in formal list. So now see temporarily what I am doing. Document.write. Here I want to print the details, like suppose here I want button ID. How to get the button ID? obj.what ID. I want X position. How to get X position? e.what client X. I want the product details. Product is an array, REST parameter. That means I want ID. And if it is array, you know how to destructure the array, na? Where we have ID, name, and what? Rating. This we will assign with the product. This is array destructuring. That means in product, first index what is present, that is stored here. In product second index what is present, it is stored here. Now we can print the details. What is product ID? Product ID is coming from ID. And what is the product name? Name is coming from name. And what is the rating? Rating is coming from rating. Rating is an object. It have a rate. And you see when I click the button, it will get all the details. The button ID, button position, button have all default arguments, custom arguments, everything is accessible here. So element can have default arguments and element can have custom. You can have your own arguments also. You can send your own arguments. React have to use all this. And here there are so many more points you need to understand. So we can have default arguments and we can have custom arguments. So this is another example for that, how we can send default and custom arguments. So what are the points about event? I hope you are clear. What is event and what is event sender and subscribers? What is event handler? What is event listener? And what are event arguments? There are more things about events. That means you should know about event propagations, event prevent defaults, event bubbling, event profiling. So many topics are there that we'll see tomorrow. Right, in tomorrow's session, we will continue with some more concepts about events. Remember, this is not React. This is all JavaScript. This is all JavaScript events. Without this knowledge, you cannot use events in React. To use events in React, this knowledge is compulsory. So you should know all this. Actually, I wasted one more day, not with React, just for JavaScript. Why? Because people with knowledge of JavaScript will already have all this knowledge. In React, we need not to discuss this. We have to tell events. But generally people sometimes miss these topics when they learn JavaScript, some important topics. Then they are not suitable for learning React. That's the reason I invested one more time, one more day extra for teaching you about your JavaScript events. And tomorrow also we have to learn some more points about events. Then we can use events in React. So a little delay happening in our React because you should have good knowledge of JavaScript. I hope you are not having any objection. If you have objection, then your problem. I will go in my React way. Right? If I go in React way, you can't manage, because generally people who learn JavaScript, they know all this. Our JavaScript people know all this. Sometimes you may miss them. That's the reason I am taking some time to explain these and get into React. I hope you are clear with this, right? So your React becomes little delay if you are not good in your JavaScript. I have to explain them, and I hope you don't have any objection in that. If you want me to skip all JavaScript topics, I will skip. I will just go into React. What do you say? No, right? Any JavaScript topic is important that I will discuss here. Then I will go into React. Every time I will do the same with every concept. I hope you don't have any objection. Huh? Right. Okay. Then tomorrow we'll continue. Right. Yeah.